Welcome back, everybody, to the Poker Model Hand Breakdown. Today we're going to get into a hand that is pretty tricky, actually. It's still going to fall into the categories, and the concepts are going to be all poker model concepts, but you're going to see how things aren't always going to work out perfectly. And you could be doing things correctly and be ahead most of the time, but still get unlucky and lose. And it's going to look a little bit weird, but I'm hoping that today's hand kind of shows you how we got to that place and why we made the moves that we made. So getting into the hand here, I have pocket tens. I have 14,000 in chips. The blinds are 1-2, so I have a large stack. 10,000 chips or higher would be a large stack because it'd be over 50 big blinds. Now, the action folds to me. And like always, I have to qualify my hand. So I have over 20 big blinds. I have a pocket pair. There is no previous action, which means I come into the pot raising, and my raise is double the big blind. So I raise to 400. The player 2 to my left, or in the cutoff +1, 3-bets me to 1,000 chips. Now I'm sitting here with pocket tens. There's still a lot of action that can occur behind this player, so I'm not really thinking too deeply about what's going to happen next until it's back on me. So let's see what happens before I have that thought. Okay, no other action, it's back on me. Now, we have a rule, right, that if you get 3-bet, you're going to fold your hands, unless you have a premium hand, which is, there's only 3 of them according to us, ace, king, aces, and kings. So if I had one of those 3 hands here, I would be 4-betting back to about 2,500 to 3,000 chips in hopes to get all of our chips in and be all in right now. If I had a hand like ace, queen, ace, jack, ace, 10, really any non-pocket pair here, or even pocket pairs below, let's say sevens, 7s or lower, then it's an easy fold, because what happens is I'm out of position on the flop, which means, the flop could be any 3 cards. That doesn't help me. And then it's back on me where I can check, and then my opponent will probably make a continuation bet and I'll fold. But pocket tens, although it's not a premium hand, it's not one I want to get all in right now, it's still a hand that I will have something on a flop. Remember that mediocre hands are second pair or better. So let's say a king comes and then it's all unders, or an ace or a queen. I still have second pair, and then I'm not just completely at the mercy of this continuation bet to decide whether I'm in the pot or not. So my point here is I might not necessarily have to improve with pocket tens to have a hand that I can continue to play using the poker model strategies. Lower pocket pairs, really ace high, those aren't hands we want to just be calling with, because again, you're probably going to flop a bad hand, and then you're going to have to face a continuation bet where you'll fold. So for all these reasons, remember too, I have a large stack, so this is a time when I can do this. If I had a lower stack, I'd have to look at a few more variables and probably fold or move all in. But because I have this large stack, pocket tens, it's a hand I will probably be okay with on most flops. I make the call. Okay, the flop comes king 9-4, and as expected, I'm not over the roof about this flop, but I still have a mediocre hand. I have a hand that I want to try to get to the river and see if it is the best hand. Players can really 3-bet with anything. Certainly ace-king is in this range, which is beating me. A lot of players will 3-bet with ace-queen, ace-jack. Really, some will do it with any 2 cards. So right now my thinking is, just like with any other hand that I have a mediocre hand with, I want to check and try to get to the river. So although there was this 3-bet action pre-flop, I'm still going to just check like I do with any other mediocre hand and see what my opponent does. Now my opponent makes a bet of 1,100, which is about half the pot, and just like with any other mediocre hand, I think about my stack. I say, when I make this call, will I have over 20 big blinds still? And the answer is yes. So again, there was all that pre-flop action, but I'm still just making the call to one bet with my second pair, which is mediocre. We move to the turn, and it's another king, which, looks like a good card for me. It makes it less likely that my opponent has a king. And now if my opponent has something like a 9 or a pair lower than 10s, I'm in good position to be ahead. But just like with any other mediocre hand, I'm going to check. And if I'm faced with a second bet, which is what this would be, I'm still going to fold. I'm going to make a conservative fold. I'm going to keep my stack above, 50 big blinds here, and I'm going to chalk it up to an unlucky hand. I really don't want to go around down this road of having to call a bet here and then calling an all-in on the river with 10s, because a lot of times I'm not going to be ahead, and it's going to be a very tough decision. So again, with any other mediocre hand, I check here. I know that I'm going to fold to a second bet, as tough as that may be, and move on. But my opponent actually checks, okay? Now the Queen of Hearts comes on the river, and this is where my river blocker bet comes right into play. So again, a river blocker bet, it's about 1/3 the size of the pot. It really allows me to know where I'm at in the hand, so my opponent could fold, where I'll win. My opponent could call, where I'll actually see if I have the best hand. And my opponent could also raise me, which really tells me I'm probably behind. Yes, like you saw last week, players will raise on the river if they sense weakness, but it doesn't happen that often. And, it's something that, again, we can chalk it up to them making a good play, a risky play, and we'll fold our hand, keeping our stack above that threshold of the small stack. So for all those reasons, I make a river blocker bet to 1,500, and really I'm done on the hand. I'm not putting any more money in. I have my 50 big blind stack, and I'm going to see what my opponent does. Okay, my opponent calls and actually flips over Queen 8, and he'll win the pot. So that was an unlucky river for me. If the river was a jack, an ace, really any other card besides a queen, I would have made my river blocker bet, and my opponent probably would have folded. If there was an 8 on the river, he may have called. Even if he had just ace high and nothing hit on the river, he may have called. Again, there's a possibility he would have bluffed me all in on the river, but not a high likelihood of that. So the point here is I used the poker model tactics throughout this whole hand, and I had my opponent right where I wanted him up until the river. And unfortunately, because he made a 3-bet with a hand like Queen 8, which players will do that, and a queen hits the river, I end up losing the pot just because of that last river card. So the point that I wanted to show today is you can really be on point for the whole hand. You can know where you're at. You could have logical reasons for everything you're doing, and then that river card can come really any other river card, and I'm winning this hand most likely. It happened to be a queen, but as you can see, the way we played this hand, I still have a large stack. At no point was I at risk for losing my whole tournament. And you can see in the long run, plays like this should win and keep you, out of trouble and out of, those situations where your tournament's on the line. So again, we went over a lot today, and we're really not trying to say, here you go, use this hand, and here you go, now you can win, use the poker model. But we want to continue to give you examples, highlight, qualifying hands, pre-flop, knowing what you have on the flop, good, bad, mediocre, understanding the second bet, and then also river blocker bets. And hang with us, because we're going to be coming out with some stuff where you can really practice this at a high volume, specific parts of the hand, and not necessarily having to study a full hand end to end, and then you're sitting at a table saying, hey, I don't really know how to use any of this. So thanks as always for listening to us. We'll talk to you on the next one. Have a great day. As always, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Poker Model Hand Breakdown. For more training tools and Texas Hold'em advice, subscribe to our YouTube channel or pay us a visit at thepokermodel.com to see our weekly articles, bi-weekly podcasts, and other episodes of the Poker Model Hand Breakdown. Until next time.